You came out here and did everything in opposition of what you were told, and then you got mad that it didn't go your way. Hey guys, this is Jules with True Crime Reactions. Disclaimer. Everything stated in this video is my opinion and my opinion only. And just like everything else in these cases we discuss here on this channel, everything is alleged. Okay, so back in May, there was a closed session, and it was about the victims' families' roles in the trial that was supposed to happen. There was an argument that took place between Kaylee Goncalves' father, Steve, and Judge Hippler. We sort of knew about it. We knew that there was a conversation that was had between the two of them, but because this was during a closed session, we weren't privy to it. Well, SarahDIrish over on X happens to have the transcripts. So that's what we're going to go over today. Now, I'm not going to read this whole thing. This very beginning portion is just everyone who's there, the lawyers and the judge speaking. Now, as far as everyone who's present, the fact that literally everyone is there, including the Chapins, they don't identify themselves, but they are there according to the transcript. They make a big deal, or shall I say the judge sort of makes a big deal about someone being there to represent the Kernodle side of things. Because he says, any reason we need to have Kernodle on this hearing? Well, if the Chapins are there, if Steve and Olivia are there, and Christy is there, and Karen and Scott are there, and Dylan and Bethany's mothers and lawyers are there, not them themselves, though. Bethany and Dylan are not anywhere near this. Their mommies are, and their attorneys are. Insane. But for everyone to be there, again, including the Chapins, who don't, this doesn't serve them, but they're there. Why is it a big deal that the Kernodles are there? This whole thing right here is just strange to me, okay? It only ever even gets brought up because Kim Kernodle is supposed to be there in place of Jeff, but then Jeff is on the call as well, which again is not a big deal because Dylan and Bethany each have two people there for them. Shannon Gray is there with Steve and Christy. Olivia is there. Like, I'm not seeing the big deal. Okay. Now, at this portion at around 10:14, everyone starts coming into the main Zoom area to have this discussion. The only other person besides the people already listed that are there is Kim Workman, who is a victim witness coordinator. This is also the person that was sending the emails out that I told you guys about that was forwarded to me about Brett Payne no longer working there and all the things about Brett Payne and going to the U of I and all the things. That is who was sending those emails out there. Now, this is the judge speaking to Kim Kernodle. In the legal sense of the word, you do not qualify as victim for purposes of Victims' Rights Act. I am willing to allow you to be here today because what I say may be important to you and the broader Kernodle family. I want everybody on the call to understand that this is a sealed hearing. What is talked about in here by me or anyone else on the call is not for public redistribution. Period. End of story. If there is anyone who has a problem with that, now is the time to let me know that. No responses. I'm sure he was waiting for the Goncalveses to say something. I'm serious. He probably was. The judge then goes on to say, as some of you have heard, and I discussed with counsel last week in a sealed proceeding, the fact that in a recent television news magazine reported some items that have not been part of the public discourse, public discussion prior to that, there is concern about ongoing publicity related to not just the interview, but other ones that apparently are coming forward, including a book as well as another documentary. Quotes around the word documentary because I'm not sure how they have a documentary without knowing what the facts actually are at this point, but nonetheless, I understand those are forthcoming. Okay, so I still can't figure out exactly what the big deal is about the Kernodle side of this. Again, the judge is asking basically why the Kernodles are even there. And Kim is there, which is Xana's aunt, and the judge is sort of being rude, in my opinion, about that situation. Now, we know they're obviously talking about the Dateline situation. We know that Steve Goncalves, not only, like I've said 1,000 times and like we've seen over the past 3 years, has been on different YouTube panels, has been on different mainstream media channels, but they also do a lot of stuff on their social media. He talks to a lot of people. He says a lot of incorrect things. He causes a lot of chaos. But when it came to the Dateline situation, he came out and did at least 4 interviews that I saw myself the week prior to the Dateline release. The first one, as far as I know, was on the Drunk Turkey Show with Daniel. Then he went on News Nation. Then he went on Ashley Banfeld's private channel. Then he went on The Interview Room with Christy. We talked about his frequency change as he went from drunk turkey to how he acted on the media to how he acted with Chris and them. We talked about this. But then he said some information that he ended up actually getting incorrect. He said something about how Kohberger was looking up the crimes before the 911 call was even made. Like he was on Google looking up the homicides before the 11:58 a.m. timestamp for the 911 call. That's not true at all, for one, because we haven't seen any proof of that in the actual, thousands of documents at this point that's come out. But Dateline actually said that he didn't even look up the crimes on any search engine or anything until 11/16, which is the same date of the very first press conference that was had by MPD. So there was some things that Steve came out in those 4 interviews that ended up being in the Dateline thing. So a lot of people were like, damn, Steve must have given them a bunch of information, but who's Steve getting information from if he's also out here claiming, oh, the state won't talk to us, they won't tell us anything. But we also, again, know that Steve does this. He gets a lot of information from a lot of sources, and he gives invalid information to these sources to work off of. Therefore, they are presenting and producing invalid results. That's just how the frick that works. And I don't understand how this smart man doesn't understand that, but that's the situation. So after Dateline, and we realized everything Steve was saying pretty much that sounded new was coming from this thing, from this Dateline episode, for then Hippler to come out and again initially only address the prosecution side. It was an interesting twist because that's like the opposite of what we've been told. There's no way that it could have been law enforcement and Steve Goncalves, because Steve Goncalves wasn't getting any information from law enforcement. So that didn't work. So I don't know, again, if we're going to see anything from this Dateline leak or not, but something definitely needs to happen, because the entire thing is beyond confusing. Not a lot of the other families speak at all. Some of them spoke in the very beginning, but there was nothing that they were being told. So there was nothing that they needed to say. There was nothing they could say. The Goncalveses did the very opposite. We know all of this. So it makes sense for them to be there. And it makes sense for the Chapins to be there and for Maddie's mom and stepfather to be there, because they participated in other documentaries. We know that they're talking about the extremely incorrect freaking James Patterson book and the Amazon Prime series that came out, and apparently were in some sort of weird sponsorship or partnership or something together, because we were told they were based on the same sources, which is over 300 interviews and other information. James Patterson even mentions and thanks the chief, James Fry, under a gag order. Like, that's crazy to me. But anyway, I don't know why, if this is supposed to be geared towards the families that have only spoken, that would make sense for him to be like, well, why are the Kernodles here? Because no one from that camp has been talking. But Dylan and Bethany's parents, moms, and lawyers are there. And we know they haven't come out and said any damn thing. Unless they're coming out as like anonymous sources and we just don't know about it. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out why he's behaving this way with the Kernodles, because it just seems out of pocket. You cannot have these things without having the facts and the ending of the stories. And we don't have those yet. We have pieces, but we don't have the full story. I want to stress for folks the ability to conduct this trial at the time that we have it scheduled for, and potentially at all, is jeopardized every time you talk to the media. Every time you republish statements or evidence that was never supposed to be in the public sphere in the first place. What I am telling you now is it needs to stop. The judge then goes on to say, I am not entering an order apart from what has already been ordered in this case with respect to non-dissemination, but I am telling you, as you know, there is already a motion to continue the trial pending. The more you talk, and at this point continue talking to the media, it jeopardizes that trial date. It jeopardizes my ability to seat a jury. At some point, if I can't seat a jury, I don't know what happens then. My guess is that you are probably not going to be happy with it. If you are truly interested in seeking to have a trial in the pursuit of justice, your desire or willingness to talk needs to take a back seat. And this is where he turns and speaks directly to Steve Goncalves. You, in particular, have a history of speaking to the media, and I understand as a father your reasons. I am asking you to set that desire aside so that we can get to a trial in this case. And of course, Steve has to argue and say, I don't know if I agree with that. You are on the screen more than anyone else. More than anyone else in the other families, and more than anyone else in your own family, with Olivia taking second place. You don't agree with the facts, Steve? Why does that not shock me? The judge then goes on to say, well, I am just telling you what the facts are, whether you agree with them or not. Yes, you talk too much. Plain and simple. Steve then argues, the facts are that we don't have to have this gag order. That's the facts. We do not have to have a gag order. I think it's disgusting that we are even saying the word gag when some of the victims were. That's not true. I think it's disgusting that we are asked to hide what happened to our children. I don't agree with that. Okay, for 1, 2, and maybe even 3. For one, there's no proof that any of the victims were gagged. There was markings on the sides of Kaylee's mouth, and that does not mean that she was gagged. It does not. That is something, again, that's being fabricated, elaborated, and just thrown into the oblivion by the Goncalveses and the Goncalveses freaking only. Number 2, the damn families are not part of the gag order. The damn families are not part of the gag order. The gag order was put in place because you guys wouldn't shut the hell up. So therefore, they had to build the Great Wall of China in between the investigation and you. You were warned how many times? You can't come out here and say that you're some sort of alpha father and not follow what you need to follow in order to make sure that things happen the way that they're supposed to happen. You came out here and did everything in opposition of what you were told, and then you got mad that it didn't go your way again. Their victim statements had to have been rewritten that morning because everything they thought they knew about this case that they found out themselves because of their irresponsibility and unwillingness to just do the right thing, it all fooled them into thinking things that were not true. Every single one of those victim statements were based on lies that they found and fabricated themselves. And that came from them themselves. No one can blame them for going out and spreading lies but themselves. The state wasn't telling you anything because if they would have, it would have been all of those truths that you were out here spreading around all over the place, jeopardizing the freaking investigation, jeopardizing the trial. You proved from day one that they couldn't trust you. You caused the wall, sir, no one else. So then Judge Hippler says, I don't care if you agree with it or not, sir. I also don't have to have a trial if I can't seat a jury. Yeah, that's basically it. If I can't seat a jury because you've come in here and tainted literally everything, you're not going to like what's going to happen. They could instantly be like, no, mistrial based off of all these plethora of reasons. And then Kohberger goes free without any evidence ever being presented, which isn't anything that anybody ever wanted. Even people on the other side of the fence like me who are questioning everything and don't believe the narrative, we wanted everything to go to trial. We wanted all of the evidence presented. I never wanted him to just walk the frick out. I wanted the evidence presented because in the evidence comes the truth, regardless of what the truth was going to be. So again, for Steve to just be like, yeah, I don't really care, whatever, when it literally could have caused there to be a mistrial, and instead of the person that he hates so much being behind bars for life, he could have been walking the streets and everything would have had to have been redone maybe, or not even done at all. What would he have been saying then? What would he have been blaming then? Who would he have been blaming then? Still probably not himself. So then Steve says, I understand you have a job to do, and so do I as a parent. These are my children. I care about what happened to them. But you're being told as a parent what you need to do as a parent in order to get justice for your child, and as a parent, you're not listening. That's the facts. Judge Hippler says, your talking right now is not going to bring your child back, and it potentially endangers the ability to hold the person you have indicted that you believe is accountable to account for this. Exactly. And that family, more than any of them, are pounding down on it being Kohberger so bad. Yet they are arguing when the judge is like, calm down, or something bad could happen and you're not going to like it. It's not going to be in my control. It's going to be based off of all of these other actions that you were warned against, but you're not going to like me when I have to come in and actually lay down the consequences. You know, like toddlers do. Steve then says, I don't disagree there. Then Judge Hippler says, I am telling you what the ramifications are for continuing that. That is what I wanted to share. That's what I wanted you to be aware of. I will enforce the non-dissemination order for any violations, and I will enforce them with vigor. But, okay, this is so flip-floppy. There is no gag order for the families. Like I just said, not just a few minutes ago in this video, and like we've been trying to make people understand for a long time now, there's no gag order on the families. They don't know anything in order to say anything because the gag order was put right before them to literally separate them from the lawyers and the investigation. So you cannot punish him, Hippler. You cannot punish Steve. You cannot threaten punishment on someone who is not bound by the gag order that you're complaining about. So yeah, you can enforce whatever you want to with vigor, but you can't punish someone who's not bound by the gag order for speaking. You should know that. That doesn't work. So then Shannon Gray stands up and says, I know that you have deadlines for the disclosure of any person that had information related to that information that was released to Dateline. Have the defense and prosecution provided that information to the court? And is there going to be a special prosecutor that is going to be assigned to that? We already know that that is supposed to be still ongoing. Yet we are, again, I'm recording this on 11/24 of 25. We have had this leak investigation going on now for months, and we haven't heard a word. But it's apparently still happening. Because when I was in contact with the family, we were just as surprised about the information that came out on Dateline as everyone else was. It was not the Goncalves family that was involved in any of those disclosures. No, we're being told that this was a law enforcement leak. Somewhere on the state side, somewhere on the prosecution side. Because remember how this went down. When Judge Hippler came out mad about this whole thing, he instantly was like, it's somebody on this side. It's somebody on the state side. It's somebody in law enforcement. There wasn't even a document written up for the defense yet. That's how much it didn't even fathom to him. It could have been the defense. There wasn't even a document with their name on it yet. It was all geared toward the prosecution side. So I honestly highly doubt we'll ever hear anything. But if it was the defense, they'd probably come out and like yell about it and have confetti and balloons and everything to get everybody's attention. But because it most likely was on the prosecutor's side, they're not going to say anything. I will be really surprised if we ever get an update on that situation. And then the judge just says that the deadline for this stuff is tomorrow and basically everything is done and over with. They had this meeting just for the judge to tell people to stop talking to the cameras, to stop talking to the media, and to specifically say to Steve Goncalves to quit the crap. Where's it at? Addressing Mr. Stephen Goncalves individually. You in particular have a history of speaking to the media. Quit the crap. And he still hasn't. It's been 6 months since this happened. Before the plea deal, after the plea deal, it didn't matter. He never stopped. We just literally reviewed him and Christy over on Nancy Grace like maybe less than a week ago. It hasn't stopped. I mean, honestly, we've been dealing with this sort of behavior just in our faces like this for such a long time now. And we've seen it be rewarded. We've seen it be thrown sympathy. And I just don't understand it. Again, I understand the base of this. They lost their child, the most devastating thing that could possibly happen. But when you come out and you give false information about what was going on with your kid, like how much stuff about Kaylee is coming out in these reports and the timelines for things, the new details that are actually coming in and disproving so many things that were said. And it's not even just by the people that did the investigation, but by the families too. When it came to what intentions were and what was really going on, there's just a lot of stuff that's very not what we believed. And a lot of it does have to do with the families. And again, just like Judge Hippler said, the Goncalveses in particular. That's not something I'm saying because I have a distaste for that family. That's just the actual facts here. They have made it as if all of the attention constantly had to be on them instead of this being a situation where 4 lives were taken and everyone should be getting the same amount of attention. It's almost like they had to have all of the limelight on the Goncalveses. That's just how it feels to me anyway. But let me know what you guys are thinking about this little conversation that was had and how nothing changed. He didn't heed what the judge had to say. Everything ended up going this way. And Steve's not, again, satisfied with this either, guys. I mean, that's like the one thing that we really agree on here is that no answers were had. But they'd already planned for lies to be told. We watched and heard the motions where stuff about the IGG and the stuff about the FBI calling them, and all of those things were already going to be under oath lied about. And we knew that it was coming. Now, this way, it doesn't have to happen. It was just something that was discussed, but nobody can get in trouble for it because the trial didn't happen. We didn't get to see it. None of those things need to be forgotten here. None of them. This happened the way it happened because they want you to forget things like that. So they can continue to do things like that in cases that you won't even know are happening. That's how it works. But again, let me know what you guys are thinking about this down in the comments. If you like the way that I present this information and give my opinion, please don't forget to leave a like on the way out. Subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed already. And please don't forget to make sure that that notification bell is set to all so you don't miss any of my rants, reviews, reactions, updates, or deep dives. See y'all.